You're watching Experience Comic Culture in Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So at 3 o'clock this morning, I'm sitting in my chair, looking at the server we use to store these books, going, which of these books am I going to read before bed tonight and then reread tomorrow, because I will most certainly forget it. Next thing I know, it's 8:30 this morning. My iPad is here, and I'm still in my chair, face down in my iPad, wearing my clothes from yesterday. I still don't remember what I read, but this is in stores this week. What's up, everybody? It's in stores this week. I'm Kyle.
Is it really?
Yeah. That's Daredevil. And that's Superman. The only one going by my alter ego today. So I'm pretty punchy. This could be a thing. And Dan, appreciate why I was punchy. I was up till 3:30 a.m. coding a website.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what kind of torture that is.
Oh, yeah.
What's up, Thomas Bishop and Cool Gamer? I had to get done before Comics Pro, and it caused me to fall asleep and drool all over my iPad. It was pretty great.
Well, I feel bad because I kept adding books.
It's true. I didn't read either of the books you added,
but they came in late.
I understand. Not your fault.
And today is 2/21. How could you not read a Sherlock Holmes book on 2/21?
I agree, and I intend to read it. I pre-ordered that book from LCS. Just because the last Mycroft series was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who even did it, but it was written by like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Cool.
Yeah, it was
weird, but cool.
It was wild. But no, I definitely pre-ordered the new one from my LCS, and I'm gonna read it tonight when I get to the hotel. But it's just okay. We should get started. All right, Darkwing Duck number 2. Also, I want David Nakayama to just basically draw this for me as a tattoo. I love this cover. My favorite cover of the week right here.
And it plays into the story, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, you don't get a whole lot of covers that actually relate to the story. But this scene is in the story. It's actually attacked by rubber duckies. Thank you, Amanda. Amanda Dybert, writer, Carl Lura. I am enjoying the hell out of this book. And I remember watching some Darkwing Duck when I was a kid or when I was younger. I'm too old to have been a kid at the time. But I remember seeing some of them and thinking they were pretty fun. And, kind of a Batman spoof type thing. And Amanda is definitely capturing that magic. And the art is great. And I love the covers on it. To me, this is a big hit for Dynamite. I'm really enjoying this series. A little more so than the next one. But it feels very approachable to me. And, you could hand this to a kid and they're going to love it.
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't here when we did the first Darkwing Duck, but I did go back and read it. Loved it. Sean ended up going later that week and getting his copy from our LCS. Reread it then. That week, y'all had Megavolt as the bad guy. This one had one of my favorites with Quackerjack. Quackerjack's always been a favorite villain of mine. This is such a fun series, and if they ever decide to reboot it, I want Amanda in charge of this. I want Amanda in charge of this world because these two books felt so much like episodes. It was crazy. Like I could see both of these issues being episodes. You know, it fills up the nostalgia quota for people like me because when I actually was a kid, I watched this series like religiously, even the Saturday episodes that came on with a different theme song.
Jay, are you a
There
little
was
salty about the different theme song?
there
No,
was a different theme song?
no, yeah, Saturday had an extra line because it was on Channel 39 when I was a kid, which was WB, and then it was on ABC on Saturdays.
It was, yeah, there was a definitely I'm trying to remember what they called it, but there was a tag at the end of the theme song because it was part of ABC's Disney Saturday Morning.
Mhm.
So,
But it also brings it also can bring in new people easily, very easily. So yes, I highly recommend grabbing this one.
yeah, I'm with both Jay and Dan on this one. For me, I'm a little more with Jay on this is the nostalgia trip I've been looking for. This is the thing from my childhood that most speaks to my inner 4-year-old. Right? I think Amanda Deibert's doing a phenomenal job with the story. I like seeing Quacker Jack again, and I also think Dan's right in terms of this is a book that could easily be converted into the next media thing that they're going to do with Darkwing Duck. So I think what's happened is that it's been set up in such a way that it's built for big time success. And as a 90s kid, that's all I want from the cartoons. I will say this. I look at the cover and I look at Cat Staggs did an FOC variant where I just hear Darkwing Duck singing Rubber Ducky from Sesame Street. And it makes me incredibly happy and like, I don't know, it just feels like home. We'll move on to Gargoyles number 3. And this doesn't feel as much of the nostalgia as I had hoped.
No, I'm with you on that. This one, it feels like you really need to have watched the series like right before you got into the comic. You know, and bringing back the actual writer from the TV show may have seemed like a good idea, but it's so wrapped up that it's almost inapproachable. You know, and I mean, everything I love about the Darkwing Duck book isn't here, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's I don't think it's unapproachable, but I think you have to have more of a want for this book than you did for Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck serves itself up on a platter as what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And with this book, you got to kind of want it. You know,
Yeah, this feels more like Gargoyles season, whatever the next season after the last one is.
well, it's that thing that I often do, Dan, where I make a leap of logic that doesn't make sense to anyone but me.
Yes.
That's this book. It's asking you to take a leap with it beyond what you know from the television show. And in doing so, it's closing itself off to people who are just like, look, I think the art looks fun, or I think this cover is dope. Like you're not leaving yourself room for the pickup game, for the gains of just randos.
Yeah. And David does such a nice job on the cover where these characters look like they did in the cartoon. You don't get that so much in the interior art.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with y'all, but I'm also going to disagree just a little bit. But I liked this, but it's mainly because I've been rewatching Gargoyles on Disney Plus. So when I read this,
So you're cheating.
yeah, 100%.
So you're doing exactly what I said you would need to do to enjoy the series, and you're
Yes.
enjoying the series.
Yes. So I agree with that part. Well, actually, I retract my entire statement, and I just agree with everything y'all said. To be honest with you, I'm thinking. I mean, that's just the easier. It's the easier way to go for me since I have been watching this. This felt, and I'm going to be real honest. This would have been if it was an episode. This would have been like a 2 or 3 episode arc instead of how it was in the book. It was just kind of like mainlined or fast tracked, I should say. If this was an episode, this would have been 2 or 3 parts of an episode. I liked it, but again, I've Disney Plus, all this new stuff on Disney Plus, and I'm sitting here watching Darkwing Duck and Gargoyles and all the old shows.
Right. I will say, just to throw it out on this series, rather than Darkwing Duck, Lucio Perillo covers, home run.
Yeah.
I don't think Lucio Perillo's style really lends itself to Darkwing Duck long.
Yeah, and he's not doing Darkwing, that's why.
Right? But this is something that his style really lends itself to.
But don't you want to see him do it just once?
Darkwing Duck?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you think I'm not going to mention that to Nick, you're wrong. But I think this is one of those things, the art that can come out of Gargoyles can be so much stronger than the art that can come out of All right. Draculina, Blood Simple. If you can't tell from the intonation with which I said the name, then you don't know me at all.
This is Christopher Priest continuing his arc through the Vampirella verse. He did the Sacred Six. This is his second Draculina series. He's working with Michael St. Maria again. And the fact that he's been doing these books for a while now, these miniseries, they're getting convoluted. They're getting to where you kind of need to have read everything beforehand to keep track. This particular episode, I think if somebody sat down and picked this up as the first introduction to Draculina, they would be confused as hell. Because there's Lilith, there's Victory, there's just a lot going on in this book. That said, if you're following this is great. It's Christopher Priest just chugging along on this storyline. And the art is great. But this is not a jumping in point, even though it's a number 1. So if you're deciding Draculina, you want to pick look for the previous miniseries first. You're going to need it, and you might want to pick up Sacred Six as well, which they're all worth reading, but they do build on themselves. So you're gonna want that.
Yeah, this one felt like story time with Mama Lilith, doing a recap, talking to a new Draculina about an old Draculina and other children. So I guess setting up for this new story. And I will say this, there are some scenes in this book that really push that teen rating on the cover. There was some stuff I was like, I had to look up and make sure Jenna wasn't watching me read it. It was kind of one of those. Overall, not bad, but yes, I definitely can see, as somebody, especially myself, who's not super familiar with all these characters. I could see how this could be confusing. I would have titled it Draculina, the Bastards of Belial, mainly because I like alliteration, and I have a feeling that some of the children that we're going to be seeing in this series aren't all just Belial and Lilith. That's just my theory on it. This could be interesting, though.
I'm not going to go back and reread Sacred Six, which I barely read. I read a few issues. I wasn't a huge fan of the previous Draculina series Priest did, and I love Priest. I want to love the books, but you mentioned it, Jay, that there were parts of this book where I'm like, I'm uncomfortable reading what I'm reading right now, where I'm reading it. I'm in my parents' house, using their lawn, using their washer and dryer so I could finish my project at Comics Pro, and I'm like, this. If they saw this, I'd get excommunicated from my family. They're a little too religious for this. It ain't for me. It seems like it's going to be a fabulous book, but it ain't for me.
You two read Karma.
Right, but I did not read Karma on my mother's couch.
And my wife read it first.
Okay.
I read Karma here at the office where there's going to be like, what are you reading?
And everybody out there, if you haven't yet, you should definitely pick up Karma.
All right, Blue Book, James Tynion.
First thing, love seeing Michael Oeming back. Michael Avon Oeming doing that, and this was a tale of two books. The first half of this book is gorgeous. It's done in this black, white, and blue style. Absolutely loved it. And then it just abruptly stops. And unless you read the very last page, you don't realize that story's over. They give you the ending like in a paragraph. And then they go into a second story that's done, and I just had a hard time tracking it. It used zip tone and stuff like crazy. And it really was. I love the first half of the book, even though it ended abruptly, and could have cared less about the second half of the book. It made no sense to me.
Yeah, this is it kind of felt like what they were doing with Shock Shop, where it was two different stories kind of running one after the other. I guess I missed the part where the first story ended. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I missed something then, because I thought after the second story, it went back to the first story, and it kind of felt to me like it was continuing. Like the first story bookended. That's how it felt to me. I probably missed something though, because I mean, it's hard enough for me to keep up with one story in a book. And trust me, we have another book like that on this list, on our list of stuff we've read, that just confused me. But I agree with you, Dan. I really dug the first story. I wish the book would have just been that.
John said, please tell me Blue Book is good. I wish I could. I can't say it's bad, but it felt like a book that was the same as vanilla ice cream. I mean, it's better than no comic book, but it isn't the best comic book we have on the list this week. It's solid, and if you like Tynion, you're going to like it.
Yeah. Pick it up anyway, John.
Yeah, if you like Something is Killing the Children or A Nice House on the Lake, you're going to like it. I think it fits more into that Department of Truth sort of realm from him. A little bit conspiracy theory-y, a little bit more sci-fi than horror in places. But for me, it just felt like more of the things that Tinian does well. Nothing new or no new ground really tread. Just kind of a same old, same old. And it's not a bad thing. It's just not what I was hoping. All right. Hellboy in Love number 3.
It's very strange to see somebody flirting with Hellboy.
Or is it exactly what always seems to happen? Like, I don't get it. Like, Hellboy definitely gives off like zaddy energy, but it ain't for like he always seems to get the hot girl.
I have a few comments I could make, but we're not that level of show. But he does have the right hand of doom.
Certainly doesn't hurt.
Just say it.
We should all be so lucky. Backwards collector Blue Book is taken from the term the U.S. government used to report. Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of a Project Blue Book type story, but
I thought it was going to be about places. I was going to make a Green Book reference, but I'm not.
Yeah. So this picks up from the last episode, but it starts a new arc. And a lot of it is the transition between arcs. But there's a lot of flirting. This is the in love part of the Hellboy series. Yeah, this is 3 of 5. We're doing the love part in between the two. This is the love boat of the Hellboy universe. So get ready for that if that's not your cup of tea. The art's good. It's an interesting story. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I had not really known much about shadow puppets before, other than just drawing them on the wall. I didn't know there was a whole like cottage industry of them in the past. But I still love it. I still, it's a great series, but it's heavily on the relationship part. This one.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that's why I liked it so much. It does feel very different from the first arc. I like that they kept Anastasia. I am sad that the goblins are gone, but I'll learn to live. I thought it was a great story. It had humor, heart, mystery, and honestly, the flirty relationship between the two and just the chemistry overall is great. Anastasia's a fun character. I really felt her line about feeling naked without a hat. When she said that, I was like, yeah, I feel like that all the time.
Right.
It's why Kyle's not wearing one.
I actually hope that she gets used in stories outside of this one. I really enjoy the character. But overall, same with you, Dan. This is a good book. I enjoy the story.
Yeah, it's okay. The hood's bothering me now.
I was going to call you Belichick for a second there.
I lasted as long as I could. Well, I felt like I should be going, "Oh, mane padme." Anyway, Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden. Like, there's a level of, if I have to sell you on this book that's written by those two people, I don't know what we're even doing here, right? Not that I know what we're doing here ever anyway. But it's a fun Hellboy book. I don't know why Hellboy gets all the good women, but I can probably guess.
I think Dan solved that mystery already.
Well, I can probably guess, figuring out who his father was. But it's one of those things that, like, I didn't love big parts of the first volume, the first story arc. I thought it was fine, but I didn't love it. This seems to be setting itself up to be something that will be much more my speed. I'm not a big goblins guy. And so that was the thing. So this seems to be setting itself up to be a little more my jam.
Goblins hit too close to home.
It takes one to know one, Dan, and I are one. No. No, this seems more my speed, so I'm excited to keep reading it. All right. Everybody over here in the comments is subscribing to each other's YouTube channels, which reminds me, subscribe to ours. RIP headphone users. We are.
I've got one of my own too, by the way. If anybody wants to, the triangle of it.
But we are like it's close to 1,500, which means we can give away all these slabs that we've been teasing and teasing and teasing. We are less than 100 people away. And the number is growing quickly every day. I haven't checked today. But we are very, 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 very close to giving away a bunch of Nick's slabs. So if it doesn't, if it helps, they're Nick's. All right. The Ones, number 4.
I found this book to be very entertaining, but I have no idea what happened. This was a weird argument of an issue that just, I don't know. I feel bad about it because I enjoyed reading it, but at the same time, I don't know what happened.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think it's supposed to be that way.
Can I tell?
It was a funny ending. It was a good ending, but
Can I tell you what I did after I read the book? Can I tell you what I did after? Go ahead, Dan.
I'm just asking, is there going to be more?
Oh, yes. I hope. I emailed Brian Michael Bendis after I read this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is the funniest, most interesting book that I've read in a long time. And I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but I find it hysterical. And if Patton Oswalt isn't like 3 of the voices in the movie, then you've been misserved. Yeah. Now, I'm sure I went to his spam folder, but I still sent the email.
That was a very awesome Wayne McMurray moment you guys just had.
I did the same thing. I was on the phone with producer JD earlier, and we did the same thing like 4 times.
Oh, man. This is going to be a book that I go back and reread. I thought it was great, though. I wasn't expecting the twist near the end. And I definitely wasn't expecting what happened at the end of the battle. It was just kind of great, like deep blue sea out of nowhere kind of thing that happened. It does feel like it was left open-ended. And if you read that super aggravating sideways part at the end and read the little story, it seems like one of those characters is not exactly who she seems to be. But I read it. I mean, I was like this when I was reading it, but I read it. But yeah, I'm hoping there's more because this book was a lot of fun.
This needs to be directed by Ryan Johnson.
Just to aggravate Kyle?
Yes. But no, the whole subversion of expectations.
I can get behind that part of it for being a reason to have Ryan Johnson do it. But for me, you know who I want to direct this?
Who?
Wes Anderson. I want this movie to be more absurd. Like Bill Murray has to be one of these guys. It just, trust me. All right. Up next, The Witcher. Where are their clothes on the cover? Number 3.
What? We can have half naked women on covers and be fine?
I have the same question most of the time when I see Dynamite covers. So
I am still enjoying the hell out of this series. I think they've got the right tone and attitude for it. This continues the ballad of the two wolves. We're getting near the climax of this, though. But yeah, this was, and unlike the Darkwing Duck, this doesn't happen in the book. This particular cover scene doesn't happen. They might want it to. Nay, it does not happen. I really do like this, and there's so little action in it is great. You know, it's like it feels like there's a lot of action, but it really isn't.
So I was going to ask this question before you mentioned that, Dan, because that was my review for this book. It's nice sometimes to have books where there's a lot of action, all of a sudden not have action.
Yeah.
Now, if you do 2 issues like that in a book where I'm looking for you to have sword fights and dragons and stuff, now I'm going to get angry at you. But sometimes it's nice to just be like, even Gerald has to catch his breath.
Yes.
So let's take a break and have some exposition.
And some wine.
Yeah. Well, wine makes all exposition better.
Yes.
Or so I'm. But it.
By the way, he's got the Hellboy thing too. He also always gets the women.
He does, but that makes a lot more sense. He's a Hemsworth. So that was just a dig at Jay. No, I like The Witcher and I like this book. I don't know if there's a better endorsement of a comic book than to be like, I don't like this character, but I dig this book.
And I like the character and I dig this book. So it's pleasing everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's Jay.
Hey.
Who thinks it's art?
No, I'm in the same boat with y'all. I have been really enjoying this. This one, man, I don't know. Even without a lot of action, the pacing in this, it just kind of flew by when I read it. Like, it was a super quick read. I enjoy it for what it is. For me, it's a monster hunting book. There's, a werewolf, and then because of my accent, I'm not going to say what they call those little vampires because I don't want to get in trouble. I have no knowledge of The Witcher outside of the Netflix series. No knowledge at all. I tried playing one of the games. Game wasn't for me. I think maybe not having any knowledge sometimes helps me when properties like this are turned into comics and movies. Because I know Kyle sometimes has that thing where he knows too much about something. And he himself can't turn off the I know too much about this part of his brain. Whereas me, I don't know anything about this. So if it's good, it's good. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
That part of my brain butthole, by the way.
I had to go back and look up what those creatures were, and now I see why you didn't want to say the name. They are neckers because they go for your neck.
Could have come up with a better.
Yeah, I didn't want to chance it.
Yeah. All right. I have a thought.
Are you sitting down?
On the state of Zenoscope. We've had everything be number 1 for a really long time because they've been doing one-shots. Let's make everything number 69 for a while. It ain't going to make the books any better, but at least I'll giggle.
I have nothing nice to say about this book. I love the guys over at Zenoscope. I've done a lot of work with them. They're great guys. I don't like the art. I'm not enjoying the stories. I don't know what's going on with this. There and of course, there's no fish people, but it is heavy Lovecraft. So
Thomas Bishop with the De La Soul reference.
that's all I got. I don't want to say anything else.
Yeah.
It's almost like beating a dead horse, resurrecting the horse and beating it to death again. I am by no means an art snob. Okay, art doesn't usually pull me out of the book, but whoever decided to go for this art choice, just why? Like it just even trying to read the story, the art was so distracting to me. And if the art distracts me, then somebody might dig this book, but it's definitely not me.
Can we go to something that will redeem us for having had to read the last book? Also, I'm gonna throw my hat in for we could take a break from reading Zenoscope. At least until I get through the fish people phase.
Well, get Image and Marvel and DC to start sending us their books, and
I just don't want to see Jay's face turn the color of that bloodshot picture anymore. I worry about his health. Like he might blow an aneurysm, and then I might have to work harder.
Book of Shadows, number 4. This is finally wrapping up after what seemed like a pause in the publishing. We got 3 and 4 pretty close together. This is the final part with Exarch Fane and the Book of Shadows. We see Dr. Mirage become a badass. And we also find out that Bob Hall's coming back to the character of Shadow Man, which is kind of an interesting, who used to work on it years ago. So that's cool. But it's a little bit of an anticlimactic ending. It does feel like it just kind of build up. We're done. So normally I'm a high praiser of Valiant's books. This one left me kind of just meh.
I wasn't familiar with a lot of these characters coming into it because, as we've discussed many times on this show, my Valiant knowledge starting working with you guys was low. I knew Exo Manowar and I knew Ninjak and Quantum and Woody. This was nice for me as an introduction to people like Punk Mambo. To some of these characters that I didn't really, I kind of remember having seen, but I didn't really know anything about. I don't think the story paid off as well as it could have. But as a get your beak wet on some of these characters you haven't seen in a while or that you really haven't maybe interacted with, it was a good taste.
Yeah. I'll be super honest. My first thought was finally. This is another one I'm gonna have to go back and reread because I don't remember the first 3 issues hardly. And it's not because it was a bad story or anything. It's just I have a bad memory anyway. You leave me off of something for 2 or 3 months though, I'm gonna forget. Now, that being said though, here's one thing I will always praise Valiant for. Valiant does crossover events, in my opinion, better than most other companies do. Every character for me serves a purpose when they cross them over. They help elevate the story. But just basing it off of this issue alone, it really did feel kind of like the ending was too fast. He was too easily beaten. But Again, I don't remember the rest of the series, but I agree with y'all though. So,
all right. Before we go on to our last 3 books, I want to take a minute real quick and remind everyone that there are 2 new shows, kind of. One, it's its second week. Tomorrow night, starting at 8, we have 3T is the name of the show. Talk and Treats Trivia with Chuck Pino. Their special guest is Pat Shand. Pat will be joining them to talk about his comics, and then as they talk, you will be getting clues that will help you play the trivia game show portion of the show. So the first 15 or so minutes is an interview, and then the second, or the later part of the show is a trivia game. And the person in the comments who gets the most questions right is going to win a prize pack of Pat's books.
oh wow.
So that's super cool. That's a new show starting, Talk and Treats Trivia, 3T, starting tomorrow. And then at 9 o'clock, immediately following it, is 360 Comics, who made their debut here on the Experience last week. So 2 brand new shows, brand new, one's its second week, tomorrow night here on the Experience. And then remember, Pop Go the Writers is moving to a new time where Dan can talk to Jim longer. Fridays at 5 o'clock here on the Experience. You will get more Dan and Jim, and occasionally me commenting in the comments while I'm doing laundry or packing or eating dinner, which is what I'm normally doing during their show. So stay tuned for those things. It would be hugely helpful. All right. Dan.
Yes.
Tomorrow on the Dan Wickline Show, you're going to talk about.
I'm going to do a deep dive into Kang and all his variants, since we just had the post-credit scenes. I think it's good to kind of give an idea of who's who and what's going on with some of those characters and which ones we're more likely to see than others.
I think that would be hugely helpful, because when that came up and I went, Rama Tut, FTW in the theater, a bunch of people were like, what? So, like, I was very excited, and I think it'll be much appreciated by a lot of people. And then Thursday, do you have a plan for Thursday, or are you waiting to hear from me?
I was waiting to hear from you on Comics Pro stuff.
Yeah, it's possible that Thursday will be Comics Pro. It's possible that it might not be. I'm just gonna have to see. Only in as much as I'm not going to be allowed to be on the air, so we'll have to confirm with Jen and Brain, because I'm there under contract of Comics Pro, not of as a reader or of the Experience. I will have to be working while you're live. Jen and Brainy, however, can do what they want. So I think that's how we're going to work that out.
Okay.
And then I wanted to give a heads up. Dan and I only talked about this briefly, but be watching next week for announcements about the Dan Wickline Show. We're going to have a very special, super serious Dan Wickline Show episode where we have the executive or the acting director of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund on to talk about all of the challenges and things that are happening with graphic novels around the country right now. And so I'm very excited to have that happen. And, it's a very important cause for us comic book fans. So that will be next week on the Dan Wickline Show, one of the days.
I'll have to get out my serious hat.
If you get that hat from Jurassic Park, I swear to Bob.
I'm just excited for a Dan deep dive. It's been a while.
Yes. So
Still got to put it together.
Just be like, look, Ramatut.
And I just found out I have 2 new shows I have to come up with graphics and stuff for.
Well, one of you already had a show that you already had last week. We'll figure that out. I can help. By the way, if you want to do a deep dive on Ramatut, you can just change the lyrics to Steve Tut or King Tut by Steve Martin slightly.
Oh, jeez.
I did the research after I suggested it on Popular Writers.
Uh-huh.
I did the research, and there's only a few things where I can't pronounce the English. So, all right. 3 books left. Dune, House of That One Thing, number 2.
House Harkonnen.
Yeah, whatever.
And I'm pretty sure this is the book that confused Jay because the style is it's almost like reality TV where you're following a couple of different couples and you're jumping around back and forth and back and forth and back. That's what they're doing here. It's almost like they're doing like 7 different comics and just pushing into one. We're following these guys. We're following those guys. There's spice here. Hey, over here, there's some illegal spice. And oh, what's going on? There's a dating show going on over here where you just go and pick your concubine out. So, but it is establishing a lot of the world prior to the Dune movies. And we have a second Dune movie coming up in November. So if you haven't seen the first one, you'll want to watch it before number 2 comes out. Warner Brothers will not make the mistake of putting it straight onto HBO Max like they did the first one, which cost some people their jobs. But this is for people who are into this universe. I don't think it's for the casual reader. You need to have some background. You need to have to know what House Atreides is and stuff like that to see where they're building. Now, you don't necessarily I guess you don't have to. I mean, you could read this and then watch them, and then it'll fill things in. But it's filling things in now, which is what I like, and I like the art on it too. So,
yeah, it had really nice art, but it was kind of like this season on Dune, and then it just showed all like 12 different stories. I'm exaggerating, but it showed all of these stories happening, and like I said earlier, it is hard enough for me to follow one story with my ADD, ADHD, all of the A's and stuff brain. Just my brain is just trying to follow this. And I'm like, well, how does this one connect to this one? And then I got to tell myself, maybe this one doesn't necessarily connect to this one. I think there's maybe one story that has 3 parts in it that they show that actually kind of go together.
The Baron of House Harkonnen one.
Yes, that one.
Walk without rhythm, and you won't attract the worm.
And much like what I said about the first issue, this felt like the longest 24-page comic I've ever read.
So I tried to skim this book because I knew I wasn't going to read it because Kevin J. Anderson. And no, I'm kidding. Because I was running out of time before the show had to start, and I was trying my hardest to get caught up, so I was going to skim it. But then I got to think about how I was going to get a Panera Bread chicken sandwich on the Turnpike on my way to Pittsburgh tonight, and got real distracted by looking at the Panera Bread menu. That's my review of this book. I'm going to have a chicken Frontiga sandwich from Panera Bread for dinner.
That's amazing.
All righty.
I'll go back and skim it when I get someplace tonight and I sit down to read this book and the next one. But I would just say this. Dune is not my jam. Never has been my jam. And Kevin J. Anderson is definitely my jam. So it has turned into a, well, I guess I'll read it moment because Panera Bread.
This was one of the last 2 books we got came in late.
Yeah, I'm just real quick, wildly excited for this book. Like when the second I saw it on the website, I called my local comic shop and ordered this book and basically told them if there are any other covers, because I only knew about the one, I will take them all. There aren't, but doesn't matter. I'm so in for this book.
Okay, to do a non-spoilery review here, because Kyle hasn't read it yet. This is a very well-written Sherlock Holmes story, but it brings in other elements. It's one of those almost Alan Moore-like things. And I'm not saying it's an Alan Moore written story, but how Alan Moore likes to pull together like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Well, we're going to take this from this book and that from this book and make a story out of it. So you've got a Clockwork Man, you've got a famous horror character, and you've got Holmes and Watson. And you've got all of them mixing together, and you're not quite... First thing, this is a very long comic, by the way. It's a 50-page comic. But it's the first issue. So it's not a graphic novel or a trade. It's just a very long first issue. The art is good. The story is good. It feels like a Sherlock Holmes story. You know, it feels like the person writing it understands Holmes, brings up his foils, everything else. You get Mycroft, you get a lot of the deductions in it, you get the way Holmes thinks. It's a really well done book for Holmes fans, but you do get that added bonus. You get a little bit of steampunk stuff going on there with the Clockwork Man. And like I said, you get this other famous creature.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add on to that other than I was just going to skim this book. I ended up reading the whole thing. Like, the story just sucked me in. If you're a fan of Holmes and Watson, definitely check this one out. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's really good.
And I'm going to chime in going, I can't wait for this to cross over with the next series of Doctor Who from Titan Comics.
This is the other one that came in at the last minute. And it's a tale of two stories as well for me on this one. Because the team is separated. Owen is off on his own. And I found the Owen stuff to be confusing and hard to read. But the main story I read and enjoyed quite a bit, with them and the axe and them doing their thing. Again, this book has great art, a lot of humor, and I'm really enjoying it. But I did find myself reading them and ignoring the Owen, just kind of skipping over the Owen parts. Also because I was running out of time. It was the last thing I read right before we wrapped up. But it's continuing. It's a good series.
Yes.
Can I just say before Jay goes into his review, because again, this is one we didn't get to. Dan, I would have had a whole different review on the Legend of Vox Machina if when Grog got his uncle's axe, the belt had made it start to talk. Or it had grown a beard or something to that effect. I would have been totally in.
110,000% agree, John. I love this series. I've been here since the first issue. The beginning of this book is wild, and I loved it. The fight in hell, and then what looks like the monsters that they use later on remind me of the creatures from Pitch Black. But those are all the notes that I wrote on this because I wanted to say this. If you have not checked this book out, again, John's correct. Easily Vault's best book for me. Owen the Barbarian's awesome. His vampire companion, his mage companion, his mercenary companion. And since we're this late in the show, I'm going to go ahead and say it, a shit-talking axe that gets drunk off blood. What is not to love about this series? Like, if any of that sounds interesting, get on this book. There's Murderable Offenses is the first volume, Axe to Grind is the second volume, and then you have this story going on right now. Love this.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Did we get Godfell from Vault?
We did.
You throw that in the server. That's one that I didn't have become interested in and was hoping to pick up, was hoping to read.
Okay. I'll throw it in the server.
I appreciate that. Vault has a new book out that's kind of samurai-y that I'm kind of interested in called Godfell. I'll give a read and give everybody a review next week if you'd like.
Yeah, we just already had 12 books and those came in so late. I couldn't justify adding another one to the late.
No, and maybe if we have a short list next week, we can get this one in a week late. It doesn't matter. I'm really stoked to read Barbaric tonight to kind of dig into it. All right, guys. This show is, as always, brought to you by Comic Shop Locator. Head over to comicshoplocator.com. Type in the zip code where you are, and it will tell you where there are comic shops nearby to you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Triple B, for your kind words. I'm traveling. I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to Comics Pro. They have a bus tour of comic shops around Pittsburgh, but on the way back, I've been going to Comic Shop Locator and typing in the zip codes of the areas where I'm going. Visit comic book shops on my way home, comic shop vacation style. So do that whenever you're going anywhere. Find comic shops near you, stop in, say hi, and buy something. So thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned for a minute to skim it. They read way more books than we do and talk a lot faster.
Yeah, but we're fun.
Yeah, well, we definitely have better beard. So we will see everybody next week here on In Stores This Week. Dan, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.